My name is Connie. I'm 58 years old, and for 47 years of my life, I've been telling a story that everyone believed, that my children believed, that I myself believed. The story was this. When I was 11 years old, my mother sold me to a 50-year-old man for $200. He took me to his house, and that night, he kept me as his wife for 7 years, got me pregnant 3 times, until I managed to escape when I was 18. That was the story I told. That was the story I processed in therapy. That was the story that defined me. But there's a problem. It's not true. Or rather, parts of it are true. But the main part, the part about WHO, was the villain. I got wrong. For 47 years, I hated the wrong man. And the person I should have hated, I protected, without knowing. 5 years ago, in 2020, Mr. Joseph Grant died. The man I believed had raped me. The man I told everyone had ruined my life. And he left a box, with documents, letters, a diary. And when I opened that box, my world fell apart. Because everything I remembered was wrong. Today, I'm going to tell the story again. The real story, from the beginning. And you'll understand. Sometimes our minds rewrite the past, to protect us, or to destroy us, and in the end, I'll reveal what was in that box, what Mr. Grant wrote, and why I believed a lie for almost 50 years. Because the truth is both worse and better at the same time. I was born in 1967 in a tiny town in rural Kentucky. Our house was a rundown trailer with a leaky roof and rotting floorboards. There we lived, my father Frank, my mother Ruth, and their 11 children. I was the 8th. If someone had passed by our place, they might have thought, large family, humble home, difficult but honest life. What no one saw was what happened when the door closed. My father was the kind of man people in town called rough. That word hid what he really was. A monster. In my earliest memory, I remember him drunk. The smell of whiskey on his breath was the first warning that the night would be terrifying. When he drank, first he shouted, then he beat my mother, then us, the children. He used a belt, a stick, an open hand, whatever was within reach. But the worst wasn't that. The worst was the nights. I was 6 when I realized. The sounds coming from the room where my older sisters slept, the muffled screams, the crying afterward, them in the morning, empty-eyed, walking as if hurt inside. "Did Dad visit you again?" I once asked Mary, my oldest sister. She slapped me across the mouth. "Never speak of that. Never." But her eyes said everything. I still didn't fully understand what was happening, but I knew it was something terrible, and I knew that as I grew older, my turn would come. It was in July 1978. I had just turned 11. My gift was a look from my father during dinner, in front of everyone. "This one's ready. Tonight it's her turn." You might wonder about my mother, thinking she was another victim, a powerless woman facing her husband's violence. I thought that too for a long time. But it wasn't true. My mother, Ruth, wasn't a victim. She was an accomplice. Worse than that, she was as cruel as him, perhaps even more so. "They're women. They have to serve," she would say when one of us cried after a visit from our father. "You think my life was easy? I suffered too. Now it's your turn." Later, in therapy, I understood that my mother had been raped by her own father when she was a teenager. She got pregnant at 13, was thrown out of her home, married my father because she had nowhere else to go. And she hated us because we reminded her of what she had been, a violated girl with no choice, no way out. But understanding isn't forgiving, because the hatred she had for us was something I've never seen equal to. She didn't beat us to correct us. She beat us to hurt us, to see blood. She would keep hitting until the broomstick broke, and then she'd get another. She'd hit until neighbors knocked on the door concerned, and then she'd smile and say everything was fine, just rowdy kids. "You're a curse," she would say. "I should have aborted all of you. Every day I wake up and see you here, I want to die." And it wasn't just talk. She looked at us with such pure, complete hatred that to this day I can still feel the weight of that gaze. My routine started at 4 in the morning. Get up before sunrise, fetch water from the well almost 2 miles away. A heavy bucket that hurt my small hands. Come back and start making coffee. Then, help wash clothes in the creek. Take care of the younger siblings, clean the trailer. One step out of place, and there came the beating. A broken cup, beating. Taking too long at the well, beating. Sometimes, beating without reason. I'm beating you today for what you'll do tomorrow, my mother would say. School? Never went. What's the point of studying? Women only need to know how to cook and bear children, my mother said. Play? There was no time. There was no childhood. What there was hunger. What there was sleeping on the cold floor, no blanket in winter. What there was constant fear. And as I grew older, a new fear emerged. I saw how my father looked at me when I turned 10, the same way he looked at my older sisters before the night visits. You're becoming a young lady, he said once, running his hand down my leg. I shuddered. He laughed. Soon, soon. I knew what that meant. It was just a matter of time. My older sisters, Mary, Frances, Sarah. I saw it in their eyes, dead, empty. I knew I would be next. Every night I prayed, God, kill me first. Take me away from here. Anything but this. But God didn't kill me. Instead, He gave me something worse, or so I thought at the time. It was in July 1978. I had just turned 11. There was no celebration, of course. My gift was a look from my father during dinner, in front of everyone. This one's ready. Tonight it's her turn. My mother heard, said nothing, kept eating as if he'd commented on the weather. I understood the message. That night, my father was going to rape me. That night, I would join my sisters in the Club of the Living Dead, the girls with empty eyes. I spent the entire day in panic, thought about running away, but where to? The nearest town was miles away, and I had never gone out alone. I didn't know anything beyond that piece of hell I called home. I even took the kitchen knife, thinking about killing myself, or maybe killing my father in his sleep, but I didn't have the courage for either option. The sun went down, and with it my hope. My father went out to drink at the local bar, as he did every night. He would return later, drunk, ready for his first time with me. I was sitting in the corner of the living room, trembling, when I heard knocks on the door, strong, decisive. My mother went to answer, a man's voice, deep, polite. I couldn't see who it was from my corner. Good evening, ma'am. I'm Joseph Grant. I've come to talk about your daughter, Connie. Mr. Grant. Everyone in town knew the name. Landowner, widower, childless. A serious, respected man, but who lived alone in that big house by the highway. What did he want with me? My mother invited him in. That's when I saw him. A tall man, about 50, clean clothes, straight posture, firm gaze. He looked at me in the corner, and something in his eyes made me feel seen. Not how my father saw me, with that dirty look, but truly seen as a person. At that moment, I didn't know that this man would change my life forever. I didn't know that, for 47 years, I would believe he was my worst nightmare. And I certainly didn't know that, in truth, he would be the only salvation I would ever have. Mr. Joseph Grant wasn't actually a Mr. in the formal sense. That's what people in our area called any man with property and influence, an old tradition in rural Kentucky. He was about 50 years old in 1978, a widower for nearly 10 years, childless. His wife had been sterile, I learned later. He wasn't a rich man, but comfortable enough. A medium-sized farm, cattle, crops, a brick house with electricity, something rare in that time and place. People respected him. Joe Grant is a serious man, they'd say. Pays fair, doesn't mistreat workers. But they also said he was reserved, quiet, that after his wife died, he lived alone. Some found it strange that a man like him hadn't remarried, but the older folks respected that. He loved his late wife something fierce. I had never spoken to him until that night. I'd seen him from afar at the county market a few times. It was at the market, actually, where he first saw me. 2 weeks before that night, my mother took me to help carry the flour we bought. I was severely underweight, starving at home, filthy. We had no running water, and my mother rarely let us use well water for bathing. My clothes were little more than rags. But the worst were the marks. My arms and legs exposed, covered with bruises, cuts, scars from the beatings. My mother didn't care about hiding them. Who would say anything? Mr. Grant saw me. Our eyes met for a moment. And something in that look, I couldn't identify it at the time. But today, I know. It was recognition. He saw the suffering in me. He understood. I later learned that he asked about me. "Who is that girl?" he questioned an acquaintance. "She's Ruth's daughter, from that poor family, bunch of kids. Frank drinks too much." "And the bruises on her arms?" Mr. Grant insisted. Uncomfortable silence. Everyone knew what happened in our house. Nobody did anything. "Joe, that family, best not to get involved," one of the older men whispered to him. "Bad things happen there, but what can we do?" Mr. Grant wasn't an impulsive man. He investigated, asked neighbors, shopkeepers, always discreetly. Most avoided the subject. "They're poor. It's a hard life. Every family handles their own." But one neighbor of ours, old Mr. Dominic, told the truth. "Mr. Grant, those girls suffer. Frank, he does things, and Ruth beats them like dogs. But nobody does anything. It's their family." "What things does Frank do?" Mr. Grant asked. Old Dominic lowered his voice. "Things a father shouldn't do to a daughter." That's when Mr. Grant understood everything. And he made a decision. "I can't save them all, but I can save one." Why did he choose me, specifically? I discovered years later, because I was the youngest of the girls who hadn't yet been completely destroyed by my father. Because he heard my father commenting at the bar that "Connie's ready now." And because he saw in my eyes something that perhaps my older sisters had already lost, a silent plea for help. His plan wasn't simple. He knew there was no point in reporting it. In 1978, rural Kentucky, who cared about child abuse? The sheriff was my father's drinking buddy. The police would do nothing. And even if they did some investigation, I would remain in that house, and my father would kill me for telling on him. So Mr. Grant devised something else. Buy the girl. It sounds horrible put that way. And it is. But in the reality of that time and place, it was the only legal way to remove a child from that house. Arranged marriages were common. Legal, horrible, but legal. Girls of 12, 13 married older men. It was socially accepted. Mr. Grant hated this practice. I later discovered this in his diary. But he would use this disgusting practice to save me. He calculated how much would he need to offer my mother to accept. Our family lived on less than $100 a month. If he offered $200, 2 months' income, my mother would accept without hesitation. And so, on the night of July 20th, 1978, Mr. Joseph Grant appeared at our door. My father wasn't home. He'd gone drinking, as always. He would return later to fulfill the promise he made during dinner. That would be my night. Mr. Grant knocked. My mother opened. I was huddled in a corner of the living room, trembling, thinking about the knife I hadn't had the courage to use. "Good evening," he said. "I've come to talk about your daughter, Connie." My mother frowned. "What about her?" "I'm proposing a marriage," Mr. Grant said directly. "I'll marry Connie, pay you $200. She'll come live with me. I'll clothe her, feed her, educate her. You won't have to support her anymore." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Marry? This old man? Would he do the same things as my father? Would it be worse? Better? I was in absolute terror, but also there was a spark of hope, of change, of anything that would be different from that hell. My mother didn't hesitate for even a second. "I accept," She's yours." At that moment my father returned, staggering, drunk, earlier than usual. "What's this man doing here?" he asked, slurring his words. My mother explained quickly that Mr. Grant wanted to take me, that he would pay $200. My father shrugged. "Fine, take her." "No," I shouted, desperate. "I don't want to. I don't know him." My last hope was that my mother would, by some miracle, have a maternal instinct, that she would say no, that she would protect me. Instead, she turned to me with hatred in her eyes. "Shut up!" she shouted. "You're going and that's final. You're embarrassing me in front of Mr. Grant." She grabbed the broomstick leaning against the wall and hit me, right there, in front of Mr. Grant. I fell to the floor, crying. Mr. Grant stepped forward, his voice firm. "Enough! She's mine now. You don't touch her anymore." My mother stopped, not out of respect, but because she had already sold the merchandise. Mr. Grant extended his hand to me, gently. "Come, child, let's go." Crying, I looked at my mother one last time. "Mom." She turned her back, went into the bedroom, without looking back. I left that house that night, never returned. Before I continue, I need to explain something important. What I'm about to tell you isn't what actually happened on that first night at Mr. Grant's house. It's what I believed had happened. It's the memory I carried with me for 47 years. The memory I defined as my story, that I shared with my children, with therapists, with support groups. For almost 5 decades, when I told this part of my story, I said that on this first night, he raped me. I remembered him violating me. I remembered the pain, the bleeding, the absolute terror. But after opening that box, I understood that my mind had created this memory. It was easier to process "this man hurt me" than to process "this man saved me," but I still suffered. The psychologist explained that this happens in cases of severe trauma. The mind rewrites the story to create meaning, a clear villain, something we can understand and process. So I'll tell both versions. First, the version I believed for nearly 50 years. Then, at the end of this story, I'll reveal the real version. Because only then will you understand the depth of the confusion, the pain, and the liberation I experienced. That July night, I left my parents' house with only the clothes on my back. Mr. Grant took me to his house, a brick building with a ceramic tile roof, painted white. By the standards of that time and place, it was almost a mansion. We entered, and the first thing I noticed was the electric light. Bright, clear bulbs. I had never lived in a house with electricity before. We used kerosene lamps. The second thing was the floor, smooth, cool, clean, concrete. Not the dirt floor I was used to. "You'll sleep there," he said, pointing to a room. "Alone?" I asked, still trembling, feeling the pain from the beating my mother had given me minutes before. "For now," he answered. And it was that response, that "for now," that kept hammering in my head as I entered the room, afraid of what would come next. The room had a real bed, the first I had ever seen in my life, with a mattress, clean sheet, pillow. I had always slept on a straw mat on the floor or in a hammock on lucky days. I sat on the edge of the bed, not knowing if I could lie down. It was so soft it seemed wrong. My body ached from the beating. My head was in confusion. I had been sold. I was in a stranger's house. What would happen now? I sat there for perhaps half an hour. The clock on the wall, another object of fascination, marked the minutes. I could hear Mr. Grant walking around the house, moving things. Then the footsteps stopped at my door. The door opened slowly. He entered, locked the door behind him. "Are you going to do that thing?" I asked, my heart racing. In my distorted memory, he didn't answer, just approached, silent, with a look I couldn't decipher. It wasn't like my father's drunken gaze. It was something cold, calculated, which somehow was worse. I screamed. He covered my mouth with his hand. "Nobody will hear you. Nobody will help you." I tried to fight, but he was too strong. He tore off my clothes as I struggled. He held me forcefully against the bed. And then, The pain. A pain I had never felt before. An invasion of my body, my childhood, my innocence. I cried, begged him to stop, but he continued, the blood staining the clean sheet. When it was over, he stood up, adjusted his clothes. "Tomorrow you'll learn the house rules," he said simply, and left, locking the door from the outside. I stayed there, destroyed, bleeding, in shock. I curled up in a corner of the bed, shaking, crying silently. I had learned at home that crying loudly only brings more problems. I spent the night awake, afraid he would return. Every noise made me curl up tighter. The pain between my legs was constant, throbbing. I felt dirty, used, less than human. "Why, God," I repeated silently. "Why did you take me from that house, only to bring me to another hell?" This was the memory I carried for decades. This first night, this first rape, was the foundation of my story. From there, in my distorted narrative, everything got worse. The next morning, he explained the rules. I couldn't leave the house without permission. I had to do all the housework. I had to be always clean and available for him. I couldn't talk to anyone about what happened inside that house. If I disobeyed, I would be sent back to my parents, the worst punishment possible. I believed I had become a prisoner. I had exchanged one cage for another. The difference? This one had enough food, was clean, and the abuser wasn't my own father. In the following weeks, in my distorted version, he continued to rape me, almost every night. Sometimes he hit me, though never as hard as my mother did. It was a different kind of violence, cold, calculated, without the alcoholic lack of control of my father. I lived in a constant state of alert. I learned to read the signs, the way he looked at me during dinner, the way he said my name, if he had been drinking. Rarely, but it happened. I learned to prepare for the inevitable, to let my mind leave my body when he touched me. But the strangest thing, what confused me deeply, was how he treated me during the day. He bought clothes for me, shoes, made sure I ate well, never let me go hungry, spoke to me politely, sometimes even with a strange gentleness. Why does he treat me well during the day and hurt me at night? I wondered. For an 11-year-old girl, it was impossible to understand. Now, I want you to pause and remember. This wasn't the truth. This was what I believed had happened. This was what my traumatized mind constructed to make sense of the world. The truth, as I discovered 47 years later, was completely different. But at that moment, in my childish understanding, I had traded one monster for another. The difference was that this new monster wore a mask of kindness during the day, which somehow was even more terrifying. For 47 years, I believed I had lived through a long and continuous nightmare in Mr. Grant's house. I told everyone that they were 7 years of hell, that he raped me almost daily, that I was a prisoner, that I suffered unspeakable horrors, and part of that was true. I did suffer. But not in the way I thought. In the version I carried with me for decades, my life in Mr. Grant's house unfolded like this. The first few months were the worst. Me, an 11-year-old child, having to deal with a 50-year-old man who violated me regularly. The mental confusion of being well treated during the day, food on the table, clean clothes, a roof that didn't leak, and being abused at night. A comfortable cage, but still a cage. Mr. Grant rarely let me go out alone. "To protect you," he would say, but I knew it was to control me. When we went out together, he introduced me as his ward, his goddaughter. People were suspicious, of course. A young girl living with an older man, but nobody questioned it. He was Mr. Grant. He had power, respect. In town, I would see other children going to school, playing in the streets. I envied that freedom. Mr. Grant hired a tutor who came to the house twice a week. "I want you to learn to read and write," he said. In my distorted mind, I thought, he wants me to be more useful to him. A maid who can read is more valuable. At 12, I tried to run away for the first time. I gathered a little food, waited for him to leave, and ran. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I wanted to be far away. I managed to get to the main road when his truck appeared. He didn't yell, didn't hit me. He just said, "If you run away again, I'll take you back to your parents." That was enough. The fear of returning to that house, to my father, to my mother, was greater than anything Mr. Grant could do. At 13, I started menstruating. I remember the terror I felt seeing the blood. In my house, when this happened to my sisters, my mother would say, "Now you're a woman, now you're good for one thing." It was the signal for my father to intensify the abuse. I ran to Mr. Grant crying, thinking he would be angry about the blood. Instead, he sat me down and calmly explained what was happening. He bought sanitary pads for me, something I had never seen before. We used old rags at home. But that night, in my distorted memory, he came to my room and said, "Now you're a real woman." At 14, I had my first miscarriage. In the version I believed, I became pregnant by him. My body, too young, couldn't sustain the pregnancy. I lost the baby in the 3rd month. Blood, pain, fear. Mr. Grant called a doctor, something uncommon in that region. "She fell down the stairs," he lied. The doctor looked at me with pity in his eyes. He knew. Everyone knew. Nobody did anything. Mr. Grant didn't seem to care about the miscarriage. "We'll make another one," he said in my distorted memory. "You're young. You have time." At 16, I became pregnant again. This time, my body held on. My belly grew. My breasts swelled. I could feel the baby moving inside me. My rapist's child, I thought with a mixture of disgust and confused love. Because, even being the product of violence, it was my child, perhaps the only thing truly mine in that house. John was born in 1984, a strong and healthy boy. Mr. Grant registered him as his son. In town, people commented, "Mr. Grant finally has an heir." And they looked at me, the teenage wife, with a mixture of pity and disapproval. I loved my son with all my strength. He was my light in that hell. When I held him in my arms, when I smelled his baby scent, when he smiled at me, I momentarily forgot everything bad. "I'll endure anything for you," I silently promised him. But Mr. Grant didn't stop. In the version I believed, he came back to me a few weeks after the birth. And soon I was pregnant again. Anna was born in 1985 when I was 17 years old. Another healthy child. Another chain binding me to that house, to that man. Another one of his children, I thought sadly. But something changed inside me after Anna was born. A determination. A courage I didn't know I had. My children won't grow up watching their mother being abused, I decided. They won't normalize this like I normalized what happened in my parents' house. I started to plan. I saved small amounts of money that I managed to get when I went to the market to buy supplies. I learned as much as I could from the tutor, knowing I would need to work to support my children. I listened carefully when Mr. Grant talked about business, politics, how the world worked outside. The opportunity arose when he announced a trip. He was going to Louisville, the capital, to take care of some business. He would be gone for 3 days. "I'll leave money for you," he said. "Take good care of the children." On the day he left, I didn't hesitate. I took John, 1-year-old, and Anna, newborn, a few clothes, the money I had saved, and ran. I caught a bus to Louisville. During the entire trip, I looked out the window expecting to see his truck chasing us. But he didn't come. In Louisville, I would begin a new life. Hard, difficult, but free. I worked as a domestic servant, then as a cleaner, then as a laundress. I raised my children alone. It was a struggle, but a struggle I chose. Mr. Grant never looked for me. In the version I believed, I thought, maybe he was ashamed, or maybe he found another girl to abuse. That was the story I told for 35 years. To my children when they became adults, to friends, to therapists when I finally sought help in 2015, to support groups for abuse victims. Everyone believed me. Why wouldn't they? It was such a common, familiar story. An abused girl, a powerful man, a system that turns a blind eye. And I myself believed it. Every word, every detail, every emotion of this story was real to me. The memories were vivid. I could smell him, hear his voice, feel his weight on top of me. But it wasn't true. Or rather, it wasn't the complete truth. It was a reality distorted by trauma, by pain, by a child's brain trying to process a world too complex to understand. The truth, the real story of what happened in those 7 years, would only come to light 40 years later, and it would bring me to my knees. In 2010, at 43 years old, I was watching television when I saw a news report that would change my life. It was about statutes of limitations versus crimes that never expire in the American legal system. The reporter explained that certain crimes, due to their severity, never expire. Among them, delivery of a minor child to an unsuitable person for sexual purposes, especially when involving children under 14 years of age. I sat frozen in front of the TV, the words echoing in my head, "Never expires." I can sue my mother. I still can. For years I had accepted that the past was the past, that those responsible for my suffering, my father, my mother, Mr. Grant, would never be punished. The justice system seemed so distant from my reality, something for people with money and power, not for a poor woman who barely completed elementary school. But that report planted a seed, justice. Perhaps it was still possible. I started researching. I went to a legal aid clinic. I consulted lawyers who worked pro bono, all confirmed. I could sue my mother for selling me as a child, and also Mr. Grant for statutory rape. "But do you have evidence?" they asked. "I have my word," I answered, "and I have witnesses who knew I was sold." In 2011, I found the courage. I returned to Kentucky for the first time in 26 years. It was a painful journey, each mile bringing up memories I tried to bury. Louisville, where I lived, to the rural county where I grew up. A small physical distance, but emotionally, an abyss. I went to the Women's Advocacy Center in the county seat. The female detective received me, listened to my story. I trembled as I told it, but I didn't stop. It was as if, for the first time, I was really narrating what happened, not just to myself or to people close to me, but to the world, to a system that could do something about it. I filed a formal complaint against 2 people, Ruth Williams, my mother, for selling her underage daughter for sexual purposes, Joseph Grant, for continued statutory rape. The investigation began. The justice system, slow but relentless, started to move. My mother was located. She was still alive, 83 years old, living in the same place, the same trailer where I grew up. My father had died years before, drunk as always, never paying for the horrors he committed. Mr. Grant was also summoned to testify. He was 83 at the time, still living on the same farm. And that's when the first surprise of the process came. Mr. Grant's lawyer presented a document to the judge, a medical certificate from 1975, 3 years before I was bought, proving that Mr. Grant was impotent following a horse riding accident, physically incapable of having sexual relations. "That's a lie," I shouted when my lawyer showed me the document. "He falsified it. He paid the doctor to lie. Rich men can buy anything in this country." But the certificate was considered valid by the judge. It was from a respected hospital in Louisville, signed by 3 different doctors, with details about the accident and the injury that made Mr. Grant physically incapable of an erection. My case against him was dismissed due to lack of evidence and evidence of physical impossibility. I was furious, devastated. The man who had ruined my childhood was going to escape unpunished. But the case against my mother continued. And in 2015, after 4 years of legal battles, the verdict, guilty. Ruth Williams, then 87 years old, was sentenced to 8 years in prison for delivery of a minor daughter for sexual purposes, child abuse, facilitation of statutory rape. However, due to her advanced age and deteriorating health, she wouldn't serve the sentence in prison, only under house arrest. To me, it didn't matter much. What was important was the recognition, the conviction. Someone finally, officially said, "What was done to you was wrong. The most impactful moment of the entire process was when I confronted my mother in court during one of the hearings. She seemed smaller than I remembered, more fragile, but her eyes still had that same cold hatred. "Why?" I asked her. "Why did you sell me?" She looked at me without emotion. "Because I needed the money, and you were a burden." "Did you know what he was going to do to me?" I insisted. She shrugged. "I figured, but it wasn't my problem anymore." "Don't you feel anything? Any remorse?" "I feel relief," she answered, her voice firm despite her age. "I got rid of you." Those words hit me like a punch. There was no repentance, not a trace of maternal love, just the same contempt that had always existed. I never spoke to my mother again after that day. She died in 2018, alone in that same trailer. She died legally convicted, but without real punishment. As for Mr. Grant, he continued his life. I still hated him from a distance, convinced that he had used his money and influence to escape justice. In my mind, he remained the monster who abused me for 7 years. What I didn't know was that he was compiling evidence, writing a diary, saving documents, preparing to reveal a truth that I wasn't ready to hear. A truth that would only come to light with his death 5 years later. After the trial, my life changed. I felt lighter somehow. The public acknowledgement of what happened to me, at least part of it, was healing. I continued therapy, which I had started during the legal process. I spoke more openly with my children about the past. I even started volunteering at a women's shelter, helping other survivors. But there was still a part of me that felt incomplete. The fact that Mr. Grant had escaped justice nagged at me. In my mind, he was still the villain, the monster who had taken advantage of an 11-year-old girl and gotten away with it. Every now and then, I would check the local news from my hometown. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Perhaps news that he had finally been caught for something, or maybe just to make sure he was still alive, still capable of being brought to justice someday. Little did I know that Mr. Grant was also keeping track of me, in his own way, preparing for a day when the truth would come out, a day that would only arrive after his death. In 2015, after the trial, something changed inside me. A feeling that it was time to clean out all the dirt under the rug. My children, John and Anna, were already adults, 31 and 30 years old respectively. They knew they had been born from a marriage their mother had when young, but they didn't know the complete story. I protected them from this truth for years. Why contaminate their lives with my past? They only knew the basics, that I had been married very young to an older man, had 2 children, and ran away to raise the children alone in Louisville. I never spoke about rape, never spoke about being sold, never spoke about my father's abuse of my sisters. I wanted to spare my children the weight of this history. But after suing my mother, I realized that silence was also a way of perpetuating the pain. That secret grew between us like an invisible wall. They deserved to know the truth, or at least what I believed was the truth at the time. I called them over for a Sunday at my house. I prepared their favorite meal. I waited until we finished eating. Then I said, "I need to tell you something about the past, about how you were born." John and Anna exchanged concerned looks. They were always good children. John pursued a military career, married young, gave me 3 grandchildren. Anna became a teacher, as she always dreamed, married a kind man, mother of 2 boys. "What is it, Mom?" Anna asked, taking my hand. I took a deep breath and told them everything. The version I believed. That I grew up in a violent home, that my mother sold me to Mr. Grant when I was 11 years old, that he raped me from when I was 11 to 18 years old, that they, John and Anna, were children of rape, that I fled with them to protect them, that I had just sued my mother and Mr. Grant, that she was convicted, but he escaped using money and power. As I spoke, I watched their faces transform. Shock, disbelief, horror, pain. John, always more explosive, stood up from his chair. "That man is my father? My father is a rapist?" "He was," I replied. He's still alive, but he's 83 now. And Grandma? Grandma sold you? She did. My God. John ran his hands over his face, as if trying to tear that revelation from his mind. Anna, quieter, cried silently. She was always the sensitive one. Mom, you suffered so much and never told us? I didn't want you to carry this, I explained. But now, you're adults. You deserve to know. Anna asked in a low voice. Am I the product of a rape? My heart tightened. How to answer that? You are my daughter, I said, holding her hands. That's what matters. It doesn't matter how you came into the world. You are the best gift life gave me. That conversation lasted for hours. Tears, hugs, painful questions, even more painful answers. John was furious. I'm going after him. I'll make him pay for what he did. No, I begged. It's not worth it. Justice has already decided. I don't want you in trouble because of this. What justice? He raped my mother for years, and he's going to die peacefully in his house? Anna, always the voice of reason. John, Mom suffered this for decades. If she says we should move on, we need to respect that. In the days that followed, the two processed the information in different ways. John became obsessed. He researched Mr. Grant, discovered where he lived. He even drove there, just to see the house from a distance. I just wanted to see his face, he told me afterward. See what the man who destroyed your life looks like. Who is my biological father? He could barely say the word father. He developed a deep anger, not at Mr. Grant as a person. He never knew him, but at what he represented. The man who raped his mother and then left her to raise 2 children alone, in poverty. Anna reacted with sadness. She fell into depression, started therapy, questioned her own identity. If I'm the product of something so horrible, what does that say about me? I spent nights on the phone with her, assuring her she was perfect, that the way she was conceived didn't define who she was. Both also became outraged with the grandmother they never knew. The idea of a mother selling her own daughter was beyond their comprehension. John even said, I'm glad I never met her. I don't know what I would be capable of if I were face to face with someone who did that to their own daughter. In the years that followed, this revelation changed our family dynamics. On one hand, it brought an honesty that didn't exist before. It ended the unsaid, the unanswered questions about the past. On the other hand, it brought a new pain, the pain of knowing. John became more protective of me, called more, visited more, as if wanting to compensate for what I suffered. Anna approached differently, more emotional, more connected to my suffering. Therapy helped all of us. John dealt with the anger, Anna with the sadness, me with the guilt of having kept the secret for so long. We created a new family story, a story of survival, not victimization, of how a woman raised 2 wonderful children despite everything. How we broke the cycle of abuse that marked my family for generations. From 2015 to 2020, we lived with this narrative. It was our shared truth. Connie was a victim of prolonged rape. Mr. Grant was the abuser. The mother was the accomplice who sold her. My family believed this. My close friends believed it. My therapist believed it. I believed it more than anyone. We didn't know that in 5 years this story, which seemed so solid, so real, so unquestionable, would completely fall apart. We didn't know that the man I had called a monster for 47 years was simply waiting for his own death to reveal a truth that would rewrite everything. And we didn't know that the box he would leave for me contained documents that would make me question not only my past, but my very sanity. After the trial and the revelations to my children, my internal world went into turmoil. The nightmares, which had never really stopped, got worse. I began having anxiety attacks. Old memories surfaced in random flashes, leaving me disoriented. John and Anna insisted I needed professional help. In 2015, reluctantly, I started therapy. Initially through a community health center, later with a private psychologist who volunteered her services for abuse victims. Martha was around 50, with a calm voice and non-judgmental eyes. In the first sessions, I repeated the story I always told, the version I believed to be true. She listened, asked few questions, let me open up at my own pace. But after a few weeks, something strange began to happen during the sessions. "Connie," she said one day, "I want you to try to remember more details of the first night in Mr. Grant's house. Describe to me the room, the bed, the exact words, each moment." I began to narrate as I always did. He took me to a room. There was a real bed with clean sheets. I had never slept in a bed before. He left, but came back later, locked the door, and then he raped me. How exactly did it happen? Step by step. And there, I hesitated. The images in my mind seemed blurred, distant. He took off my clothes. I screamed. He covered my mouth. What did he say? He said that nobody would hear me. Are you sure? Yes, I think so. Dr. Martha took notes as I spoke. Her face revealed nothing, but something in the way she asked questions made me uncomfortable, as if she was noticing something I couldn't see. And the other times? You said he abused you daily. Yes, almost every day. He would come to my room at night. Every night? Most of them. Can you give me specific details about any of these other times? I tried to pull from memory. But the more I tried, the more the memories seemed to disintegrate. It was like trying to hold water between my fingers. I remember the pain, the fear, him on top of me, but the details, it's all kind of foggy. Dr. Martha nodded. It's normal in cases of prolonged trauma. Sometimes the mind blocks specific details as a protective mechanism. I accepted that explanation. But in the following sessions, something even more disturbing began to happen. Contradictory memories. I was talking about the routine in Mr. Grant's house when suddenly I had a clear flashback. Mr. Grant saying, on that first night, "You will sleep alone. I will not touch you." I stopped mid-sentence, confused. "What is it, Connie?" asked Dr. Martha. "I just remembered something strange. Like Mr. Grant had said he wouldn't touch me. But that doesn't make sense. He raped me." "Memories can be confusing," she commented, neither affirming nor denying. "Let's continue exploring." In the weeks that followed, more contradictory flashes emerged. I remembered being in a room, but with the door locked from the inside, not the outside. I controlled the access. I remembered Mr. Grant bringing a woman to the house. "This is Mrs. Lucy. She's going to teach you to read and write." I remembered sitting at a table at 13, reading a book and smiling. Mr. Grant passing by and asking, "Are you enjoying the story?" I remembered him asking, "Are you happy here, Connie?" And me answering, "I am. Thank you." Each of these memories disturbed and confused me. They didn't fit the narrative I had constructed. "Doctor, I don't understand," I confessed one day, almost crying with frustration. "I remember him raping me. I'm sure of it. But I also remember him being kind? How can that be?" Dr. Martha chose her words carefully. Abusers can be kind sometimes. It's a form of manipulation, of maintaining psychological control over the victim. I accepted that explanation too. It made sense, but the doubt remained. But I remember so many good things, and so few bad ones when I really try to remember. Yet, I know he raped me. I know. It was then that Dr. Martha introduced a concept that would change my understanding. "Connie, traumatic memories can be distorted, especially when there's prior trauma, like your father's abuse and your mother's violence." She explained that the human brain, especially a child's brain, sometimes rewrites traumatic events, creates narratives to make sense of experiences that are too complex to process. "What do you mean?" I asked, feeling a chill in my stomach. "Are you saying I'm making things up?" "I'm not saying that," she replied gently. "I'm saying that memories aren't perfect recordings, they're reconstructions, and when there's severe trauma, These reconstructions can be complex. What are you suggesting? That Mr. Grant didn't rape me? I'm not suggesting anything yet. I'm just observing that there are inconsistencies in your memories. I just want to ask, are you absolutely certain of what you remember? This question shook me more than anything else in therapy, because for the first time I considered the possibility that the story that had defined my life might not be completely true. I am, I answered at the time, clinging to my truth. He raped me, of that I'm certain. But the doubt had been planted, a small seed that 5 years later would sprout and topple the entire edifice of memories I had built. Between 2015 and 2020, I continued therapy. The memories continued to be fragmented, contradictory, but I insisted on my version of the story. It was easier, safer, to believe what I had always believed than to question everything. Doctor, Martha never forced a conclusion. She just left the questions hanging, guiding me to explore the inconsistencies. Memory isn't black and white, she would say, especially traumatic memory. Your brain was trying to survive, not document accurately. Until, on March 15, 2020, I saw in the local online newspaper I occasionally followed. Joseph Grant passes away at 92, farmer and benefactor of the region. The man I believed had destroyed my life was dead. My first reaction was a mixture of relief and frustration. Relief because the monster was gone. Frustration because he died without paying for what I believed he had done. It's over, I thought. This story has finally ended. Little did I know it was just beginning. 2 weeks after Mr. Grant's death, my phone rang. Unknown number, Kentucky area code. Normally I wouldn't answer. Years living in Louisville had taught me to be cautious, but something made me accept the call. Hello? Ms. Connie? A male voice, formal, polite. Yes, who's speaking? This is Attorney Mendez, executor of Mr. Joseph Grant's estate. Mr. Grant left a will. You are a beneficiary. I was silent, trying to process this information. Beneficiary? What do you mean? He left an inheritance for you and your children, and also a box with explicit instructions. Deliver personally to Connie. She needs to read it before judging me. My heart raced. Box? What box? Personal documents, letters, a diary. Can you come pick it up? Or I can arrange to send it, but he was very clear that he preferred personal delivery. My mind was spinning. Why would this man, whom I had publicly accused of abuse, whom I had sued, even unsuccessfully, leave something for me? Was it some kind of confession? Or worse, some way to torment me even after death? I'll come get it, I decided. I'll come there. I didn't tell my children about the call. I didn't want to reopen that wound. I invented a work trip, took a bus to my old county, and stayed at the only motel in town. Everything there seemed both strange and familiar. The dirt roads, the simple houses, the slow pace. 40 years had passed, but the place remained practically the same. The next day, I went to Attorney Mendez's office. An old building on the main street, discreet plaque on the door. The lawyer was a gentleman in his 70s, reading glasses hanging around his neck, old-fashioned manners. Ms. Connie, thank you for coming. He greeted me formally. Mr. Grant left very specific instructions in case of his death. He showed me the inheritance documents first, a piece of land valued at $80,000 and a savings account with $30,000, all divided, 50% for me, 25% for John, 25% for Anna. Why? I asked, confused. Why would he leave anything for us? The lawyer adjusted his glasses. It's in the letter. You'll read it. Then he brought the box. It was dark wood, old, well-preserved, locked with a small gold padlock. His instruction was, you open it alone, read everything, then decide if you want to share with your children. He gave me a small key. There's one more thing, he added. Mr. Grant left an envelope to be sent to a Peter August Smith, address in Chicago. It's already been mailed as per his instructions. Does that name mean anything to you? Peter. The name hit me like a blow. Peter August, a name I hadn't heard in 35 years, that I hadn't said out loud in decades. No, I lied. I have no idea who that is. I left the office carrying the box as if it were a bomb about to explode. I returned to the motel, locked the door of my room, and stared at that box for long minutes before working up the courage to open it. My hands were trembling when I inserted the small gold key into the padlock. The mechanism turned with a soft click. I lifted the lid. Inside were 3 thick notebooks bound in leather with dates: 1975, 1985, 1986, 2000, 2001, 2019. His diary. A stack of yellowed envelopes. About 25. Letters never sent. A photo album full of pictures of me from ages 11 to 18. A folder with medical documents, and on top, a sealed envelope with the words, "Read first." I carefully picked up the envelope, as if it could burn my fingers. I opened it and unfolded the letter. Connie, if you're reading this, I've died. For 42 years, from when you left in 1985 until now, 2020, I carried the weight of knowing that you hate me, and I understand why. You think I raped you. You sued me for it. You told the world I'm a monster, and I never corrected you. Why? Because I understood. You needed a villain, and it was easier for me to be that villain than the truth. But now I'm going to tell the truth, and you'll read it, and you'll decide whether to believe it or not. On that night in July 1978, when I took you to my house, I did not touch you. I never touched you. During the 7 years you lived with me, I never raped you, never sexually hurt you, never treated you as a woman. I saved you. I took you out of that house where your father was going to rape you that night. I gave you a room, food, clothes, education, and I let you grow up. When you got pregnant at 16 and 17, it wasn't by me. It was by that boy from town, Peter. You dated him in secret. I knew, but allowed it. You deserved to live. I registered your children as mine to protect you, and when you wanted to leave at 18, I let you, because I never held you prisoner. You were free, always were. Inside this box is my diary. Read it. It has everything. From the first day. There's also the original medical certificate proving I was impotent since 1975. And there are photos of you. Happy, studying, smiling. You don't remember these photos? Of course not, because your mind blocked them, blocked the good parts, and created the bad ones, because you needed a villain. And the only villain available was me. The real villain, your father, died years ago, drunk, unpunished. The real villain, your mother, you sued, but she never truly paid, so your mind put me in their place. But the truth is here. Read it, and if afterward you still hate me, that's okay. At least you'll hate knowing the truth. Joseph Grant. January 15th, 2020, 2 months before dying. When I finished reading, I let the letter fall to the floor. My hands were shaking too much to hold it. No, I whispered to the empty room. It can't be. He's lying. He wrote this to exonerate himself. But what if he wasn't? With my heart racing, I picked up the first diary notebook. The handwriting was firm, elegant, of someone with formal education, something rare in that region and era. I opened to the first page, July 20th, 1978. Today I did something many will judge, but I know it's right. I bought an 11-year-old girl, paid her mother $200, not to abuse her, but to save her. Tonight was the night her father was going to rape her. I knew. Everyone knew, but no one did anything. So I did. When she arrived at my house, she was terrified, thinking I would do the same as her father. I told her, I will not touch you. You will sleep in your room, alone, and I in mine, and no one will ever hurt you again. She didn't believe me, but with time, she will. God forgive me if this is wrong, but I saw no other way out. Tears streamed down my face as I read. Something in those words touched a deep truth within me, as if a locked door in my mind was beginning to open. I continued reading, page after page, night after night. Each diary entry revealed a story completely different from the one I had carried with me. Him hiring a tutor to teach me to read and write. Him celebrating when I managed to read my first entire book. Him worrying when I got sick with a high fever. Him buying fabric for me to make my first young lady dress. Him watching me grow, blossom, smile for the first time after months. And then, the entry about my secret relationship with Peter, the boy from town. Connie is dating. She thinks I don't know, but I've noticed for a while now. The boy is Peter, son of Mr. Anthony from the store. Seems like a good kid. Works. Respects her. I won't interfere. She deserves this happiness, this discovery. After everything she's been through, she deserves true love. I just hope they're careful. She's still very young. The photos confirmed everything. Me at 12, smiling with a book in hand. Me at 13, in the yard, tending to flowers. Me at 15, hugging the teacher, Mrs. Lucy. Me at 16, pregnant, but with a shy smile on my face. Me at 17, holding baby John. I had these memories. Somewhere inside me, I remembered these photos, these moments, but I had blocked them, replaced them, rewritten them. I sat on the floor of the motel room, surrounded by the open diaries, the letters, the photos, and collapsed. I cried like I hadn't cried since childhood. A cry of relief, of horror, of guilt, of liberation. My God, I whispered between sobs. I hated him for 42 years. I sued him. I called him a monster. And he never hurt me. The truth that I had buried for nearly half a century finally came to the surface, and it was devastating in its simplicity. Mr. Grant wasn't my abuser. He was my savior. I spent the entire night in that motel room, reading every page of the diaries, every unsent letter, examining every photo. When the sun rose, I was exhausted, with swollen eyes, but with a clarity I had never experienced before. But there was still one envelope I hadn't opened, hidden at the bottom of the box with the words, "Final truth, read alone." With my heart pounding, I opened it. It was a single sheet of paper with trembling handwriting. He was already sick when he wrote it. Connie, if you've read everything up to here, you already know the biggest truth. I didn't hurt you. But there's one thing I never told you, and never told anyone. It's about that night, July 20th, 1978, the night I took you away. I didn't tell this part in the diary because it was too dangerous. When I arrived at your house that night, it wasn't by chance. Your father had already started. I heard screams from the road, a child's screams. When I entered the house, the door was open. I saw your father on top of you, on the living room floor, you crying, him drunk, your mother watching, arms crossed. I pulled him off of you, beat him until he passed out. Your mother screamed, "Let go of my husband." I said, either I take the girl now or I call the police. She accepted the money. Connie, your father raped you that night. Not completely. I got there in time, but it had started. And when I took you to my house, you were in shock. You didn't remember what had happened. Trauma blocked it. And in the years that followed, your mind switched the faces. Put my face in place of your father's face, because it was safer to hate me, who saved you, than to hate him, who really hurt you. I knew this, always knew, and never corrected it, because you needed to process it in the way you could. But now you know, the complete truth. Your father raped you. I saved you. Your mother watched and did nothing, and your brain rewrote everything. Forgive me for not telling you before, but I didn't want you to carry this. Now, you decide what to do with this truth. Joseph Grant. The paper fell from my hands. The final truth, the missing piece in the puzzle of my life, was there, brutal in its simplicity. Everything made sense. The contradictory flashbacks, the memories that didn't match up, the constant feeling that something was wrong in my recollections. My father raped me, Mr. Grant saved me, and I reversed everything. The psychological mechanism was now clear, as my therapist had suggested. My childish mind, unable to process such betrayal by my own parents, found an alternative path. It was safer, more bearable to transfer the trauma to the stranger, to Mr. Grant, someone I could hate without destroying my emotional foundation. I picked up the phone with trembling hands. I called my children. John, Anna, come here. Now. I need to tell you something. I didn't explain more, just gave the motel address and asked them to come as quickly as possible. 2 hours later, they arrived, worried and confused. John driving, Anna in the passenger seat, both with expressions of alarm. "Mom, what happened?" John asked as soon as they entered the room. "Are you okay?" I sat on the edge of the bed, the open box beside me, its contents spread across the mattress. "I lied to you," I began, my voice trembling. Or rather, I lied without knowing I was lying. Anna sat beside me, took my hand. "Mom, what are you talking about?" I took a deep breath, gathering courage. "Mr. Grant wasn't your biological father, and he never raped me." John, "What?" I discovered the truth. It's all here. I showed them the diaries, letters, documents. John and Anna read. Hours of reading. Afterward, John crying. "Mom, you suffered through all that, and we hated the wrong man?" Anna, "Who is our real father then?" "A boy from town, Peter. He doesn't know about you." John, "And Grandpa, Mom's father, he raped me," I confirmed, my voice breaking. "It started that night. Mr. Grant arrived in time to stop it from being complete. But it had begun. And Grandma? She watched and did nothing." Silence. John, "So, Mr. Grant, he left us an inheritance because he loved me like a daughter and loved you like grandchildren, even without being blood." Anna, crying, "And we never thanked him. We hated him. He understood. It's in the letters. He doesn't blame us." John, "But he died without us knowing the truth, died alone, thinking we hated him." And then John found something else in the box, a small envelope, sealed, written. "Open only if John and Anna want to know." John, "Mom, there's one more thing here." I hadn't seen it. "What?" John opened it. Inside, a birth certificate. His, but not the one he knew. It was another one. Original birth certificate, registered in 1984, cancelled in 1985. Name, John Peter Smith. Father, Peter August Smith. Mother, Constance Marie Williams. John, "I have a birth certificate with another name and another father?" I didn't know about this. I was equally surprised. There was a letter with it. "John and Anna, when you were born, I first registered you with the biological father's name, Peter. But later, with your mother's authorization, who wanted to protect you from gossip, I adopted you officially, canceled the old registration, made a new one, with my name as father. Technically, I am your father, by adoption. And Peter never knew. He left town before you were born. If you want to find him, his address, the last I knew, is in the other envelope. But no, he doesn't know that you exist. The decision is yours. Your father, by heart, Joseph Grant." John turned to me. "Mom, who is Peter? Where is he?" I don't know. He left in 1985. Never saw him again." Anna, "But there's an address here." She took another envelope. "An address in Chicago. Updated, 2019. "He's alive and lives in Chicago," John stated, his voice trembling. Are we going to look for him?" Anna asked, hesitant. "I am," John declared. "I need to know." "John, wait," I began, feeling panic. "Mom, I have a living biological father, and he doesn't know I exist. I need to talk to him." At that exact moment, John's cell phone rang. He looked at the number, area code 312, Chicago. With a shaking hand, he answered, "Hello?" A male voice answered on the other end. I couldn't hear, but I saw John's face transform. "Yes, Who's speaking? Pause. You are my father? My heart stopped. Yes, my mother is Connie. John looked at me, his eyes wide. In Kentucky? Yes. Yes, sir. Another pause. Hello? Hello? The call dropped. John lowered the phone, looking at us in shock. It was him, Peter, my biological father. He received a letter from a lawyer saying he had a son. He's coming here. Now. I felt my world spinning. Peter, after 40 years, he would discover everything. Mom, does he know you had 2 children? Or just John? Anna asked, her voice trembling. He doesn't know anything, I answered. Mr. Grant sent a letter to him now? After dying? John picked up the attorney's envelope. There was another letter, from Mr. Grant, with the instruction, send to Peter August Smith after my death. John opened it. Peter, you don't know me, but I know you. You are the biological father of John and Anna. Connie never told you because you left before they were born. I registered them as mine, raised them from a distance, through inheritance and financial support via Connie. But now I'm dead, and they deserve to know their biological father. You deserve to know your children. Their address is attached. Go there. Joseph Grant. He planned everything, John whispered, amazed, even after death. Suddenly, loud knocks on the motel room door. Insistent, urgent. We looked at each other, alarmed. Could it be? Had Peter already arrived? I stood up, trembling, and opened the door. In the doorway stood a man. Not Peter, another man I didn't expect to see. Miss Connie? Asked Detective Carver from the Kentucky State Police. Yes? Did you open the box that the late Joseph Grant left? I did. Why? Because there's an anonymous complaint, made by Joseph Grant himself, set to be delivered after his death. Complaint? Against your father, Frank Williams, and your mother, Ruth Williams. My mother is already dead, and my father died years ago. I know, but there are other victims, your sisters, and Joseph Grant left evidence. The detective pulled out a thick folder, photos, documents, recordings, witnesses he paid to keep safe until he died. Your mother and father abused at least 6 of your sisters and sold 3 of them to other men. I felt the floor disappear beneath my feet. What? Joseph Grant investigated everything for years, but he couldn't report it while alive, feared retaliation against the victims, so he sealed everything, to be opened when he died. The detective looked at me seriously. And now I need you to help me, to find your sisters, to confirm. My sisters. Where are they? He handed me a list. Mary, oldest sister, sold at 13 to a farmer in 1975, whereabouts unknown. Frances, sold at 12 to a merchant in 1977, whereabouts unknown. Sarah, ran away at 14 in 1980, whereabouts unknown. John, who had approached, looked at the list over my shoulder. Grandma sold more daughters? And Joseph Grant saved only one, your mother, the detective answered, because he couldn't save the others. I fell to my knees, the world spinning around me. My sisters, where are they? The detective knelt to be at my level. That's what we need to find out. And you are the only one who can help us. At that exact moment, my phone rang. Unknown number. With trembling hands, I answered, Hello? A woman's voice, aged but familiar. Connie? Yes, who is this? It's Mary, your sister. I froze, unable to breathe. Mary? You're alive? Yes, she answered, her voice breaking. I saw the news about Mr. Grant's death, and that he left an inheritance for you. And I needed to call. Where are you? What happened to you? I can't talk on the phone, but I need to see you. There are things you need to know. What things? About that night, the night you left. Which night? 1978? No, the other night. The night you don't remember. What night? Mary, long pause. The night Mom tried to kill you.